There was a time when the day was never just the day. It was accompanied by commentary, by evaluation, by a running summary that followed each hour as it passed. The morning had a tone. The afternoon was assessed. The evening was reviewed. Even while the day was happening, something was already talking about it. This day is good. This day is off. This day is productive. This day is wasted. The commentary didn't wait until the end. It showed up in the middle of moments, while drinking coffee, while answering a message, while standing at a stoplight. The day rarely unfolded without being described. And for a long time, that description felt harmless, even helpful, felt like awareness, like engagement, like being conscious of your life. But slowly, something shifts. Not dramatically, just quietly. There are moments when the commentary doesn't arrive. You wake up, and the morning begins without being labeled. You move through the first part of the day without asking how it's going. You don't check the tone. You don't evaluate momentum. You don't compare this morning to other mornings. You simply move through it, and nothing is missing. At first, this can feel unfamiliar. The mind is used to checking in, used to asking, "How is today so far?" So when that question doesn't arise, there can be a brief sense of disorientation, like forgetting to look at the clock and wondering what time it is. But the day continues. Tasks get done. Interactions happen. Moments pass. And the absence of commentary doesn't create confusion, creates space. The day begins to feel lighter, not happier, lighter. There's less mental weight attached to each moment. Nothing is being graded. Nothing is being tracked. Nothing is being summarized in real time. You're no longer living inside a report about your life. You're just living it. This shift is subtle but profound. Because the commentary wasn't neutral. Even when it seemed gentle, it shaped experience. It framed moments as meaningful or meaningless. It decided what counted. It highlighted what should be remembered and what should be dismissed. Without that framing, moments regain their natural scale. A small interaction stays small. A quiet hour doesn't need justification. An uneventful stretch of time doesn't feel like a problem. The day doesn't need to be interesting to be valid. This changes how time is experienced. Before, time was measured against expectation. Is this what today should look like? Am I where I should be by now? Is this enough? Those questions used to run quietly in the background. Now they don't appear, or if they do, they don't stick. Time passes without commentary, and without commentary, time feels different. Not faster, not slower, more even. There are fewer spikes of urgency, fewer dips of dissatisfaction. The day has a steadiness to it. Not because it's controlled, because it's not being constantly interpreted. You begin to notice how much commentary was actually interruption. It pulled attention out of the moment and into evaluation. It split experience into two layers, the living of the moment and the talking about it. When the talking stops, the split closes. There's just experience. This doesn't make the day feel empty. It makes it feel complete. Even mundane moments have a fullness when they're not being commented on. Not a dramatic fullness, a quiet one, like the feeling of standing in a room without needing to adjust anything. The room is fine as it is. One of the most noticeable changes is the end of daily narratives. You no longer frame the day as a story. There's no arc, no beginning, middle, end structure. The day doesn't need a theme. It doesn't need to lead anywhere. It unfolds, and that's enough. This also changes how the end of the day feels. Before, evenings were often spent reviewing, going over what happened, what went well, what didn't, what should have been different. Now, the day doesn't require review. There's nothing to summarize, nothing to extract, nothing to judge. The day ends because it ends, not because it's been evaluated and closed. This brings a surprising sense of rest, not because the day was easy, but because it wasn't carried forward mentally. You don't take the day to bed with you. You don't replay it. You don't try to fix it in hindsight. You let it be done. Sleep comes without negotiation. And when you wake up, There's no sense of picking up where you left off mentally. The new day doesn't inherit commentary from the previous one. It starts fresh, unlabeled. This also affects how productivity is experienced. Before, productivity was measured continuously. Am I doing enough? Am I wasting time? Is this the right thing? Now, productivity becomes less of a concern. Not because you stop doing things, but because doing is no longer evaluated in real time. You work when there's work to do. You stop when it's time to stop. There's no internal scoreboard tracking efficiency. Tasks are completed because they're needed, not because they support an identity. This removes a lot of pressure. The pressure to make the day count, the pressure to justify time, the pressure to feel accomplished. Without commentary, accomplishment loses its grip. You don't need the day to prove anything. It doesn't need to add up to something larger. It just needs to happen. This also softens disappointment. Before, a day that didn't match expectations was labeled as bad. Now, expectations don't frame the day in the same way. If something doesn't happen, it doesn't become a failure. It's just something that didn't happen. No narrative forms around it. No conclusion is drawn. The day remains intact. This doesn't mean preference disappears. You still like some days more than others, but preference doesn't turn into judgment. A quieter day isn't seen as lesser. A busy day isn't seen as better. They're just different textures of experience, and neither needs commentary to be valid. There's also less emotional whiplash. Commentary often amplified emotion. A small frustration became a big deal because it was narrated. A minor success became pressure because it was highlighted. Without narration, emotions remain proportional. They rise, they pass. They don't dominate the day. This creates emotional stability without control. You're not regulating emotions. You're not managing reactions. They simply don't get escalated by commentary. The day becomes smoother, not because nothing happens, but because nothing is exaggerated. Even boredom changes. Boredom used to be immediately commented on. This is boring. I should be doing something else. This is a waste of time. Now, boredom is just a sensation, a neutral stretch. It doesn't require correction. It doesn't signal a problem. It's just part of the day's rhythm. And often, without commentary, boredom dissolves on its own. Not because something exciting replaces it, but because nothing is resisting it. This also affects memory. Without constant commentary, fewer moments are marked as important. But that doesn't mean they're lost. It means memory becomes selective again. You remember what naturally stands out, not what commentary insisted you remember. This reduces mental clutter. You're not carrying a mental archive of the day, just what needs to be carried, which is usually very little. Living without daily commentary creates a quiet intimacy with life. You're closer to what's happening, not because you're focusing more, but because nothing is pulling you away. You're not halfway in your head. You're fully in the day. This doesn't make life more intense. It makes it more direct. You begin to trust the day. You don't need to supervise it. You don't need to guide it. You don't need to make sure it's meaningful. You let it unfold. And in doing so, you discover that the day doesn't need your commentary to be complete. It doesn't need interpretation to be lived. It doesn't need approval to pass. It arrives. It moves. It ends. And that's enough. When nothing comments on the day feels whole. Not remarkable, not dull, whole. And that wholeness doesn't ask for words. It doesn't need to be described. It simply is. And tomorrow, another day will arrive the same way. Uncommented, unjudged, ready to be lived without explanation.